She poured it slowly, deliberately, while looking me directly in the eyes. The bottle was half full when she started. It was nearly empty when she stopped. The bleach hit the fabric of my interview dress, the only professional dress I owned, the navy one. I had bought secondhand for $43 from a consignment shop in Cambridge, and it hissed. A soft, terrible sound, like something being erased. My sister set the bottle down on the counter. She smiled. From the living room, my mother did not look up from her laptop. "Stop being dramatic, Sarah. It's just a dress." My father was in the kitchen pouring himself a drink. He said without turning around, "Your sister is under a lot of pressure. Don't make this about yourself." I stood in the laundry room of the house where I had grown up. The dress was ruined. The interview was in 14 hours, and the bleach was still spreading. A slow orange bloom across the navy fabric, the chemical smell filling the small room. I did not yell. I did not cry. I turned off the iron that was still plugged in behind me, and I carried the dress upstairs. My name is Sarah Park, 27 years old. The night before my Harvard Medical School interview, my younger sister, Emma, destroyed the only professional thing I owned while my parents watched and said nothing. I wore the dress anyway. And what happened when I sat across from the Associate Dean of Admissions? The next morning, behind what he pulled from the second drawer of his desk and placed on the table, is the reason I am telling you this story today. Let me start from the beginning. Because to understand what happened in that interview room, you need to understand what happened in the 12 years before it. I grew up in a 4-bedroom house in Lexington, Massachusetts. My father, James Park, was a partner at a mid-sized corporate law firm in Boston. My mother, Helen, ran a private tutoring company she had built from the ground up, which gave her an unusual combination of professional success and strong opinions about academic achievement and exactly which of her daughters deserved it. I was the older daughter. Emma came 3 years later. From the time Emma was old enough to be compared to me, the comparison had already been decided. Emma had the right temperament. Emma had the right kind of focus. Emma had the instincts that medicine required. I remember a science fair when I was 12. I had spent 6 weeks on my project, study of water filtration, methods using materials collected from our backyard creek. I won second place. I came home and told my mother. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Second is solid, Sarah." Then she turned to Emma, who was 9, and said, "Did you see what your sister put together? I want you to think about what you would have done differently. That kind of thinking is what gets you to first." Emma was 9. She had not been at the science fair, but she was already being prepared for the version of success my mother had decided was hers. When I was 15, I said at dinner that I wanted to be a doctor. My father set down his fork. My mother smiled in the particular way she smiled, when she had already filed an idea in the wrong drawer. The following month, I heard her tell a friend over the phone that Emma had been talking about medicine since she was a little girl. Emma was 12. She had never mentioned medicine to me once. By the time I was in high school, the shape of what my family had decided was clear. They had decided which daughter would be the doctor. They simply had not told me I was not her. I applied to Boston University on my own. I wrote my essays without showing anyone. I got in. I told my parents at dinner, and my mother said, "BU is fine. It's not where we tell people, but it's fine." My father said, "Don't count on us for medical school. We're saving for Emma." I started BU in the fall. I worked 2 jobs. I graduated 4 years later with honors in biochemistry and a debt load. I paid down $50 at a time. 2 months after graduation, I started as a medical interpreter and family support coordinator at Massachusetts General Hospital, working primarily with the pediatric neurology department. My mother asked if they were actually paying me. They were paying me, but that was never really the question. If this is already familiar, stay with me, because what happened in that interview room at Harvard Medical School is something I could not have written if I tried, and it starts 18 months before the bleach. I need to tell you about Marcus before I tell you anything else. His full name was Marcus Reyes. He was 6 years old when I first met him. He had been admitted to the pediatric neurology floor at MGH in November of my first year working there. A complex seizure disorder that had gone undiagnosed for 8 months because his mother, Elena, did not have the English vocabulary to describe what she had been watching happened to her son. Elena had come from Guatemala in 2014. Her husband, Roberto, had been a construction worker who was killed in a worksite accident when Marcus was 2. She had been raising him alone in a 2-bedroom apartment in East Boston on a hotel housekeeping salary. The day I met them, Elena was sitting in the corner of the room with her hands pressed flat against her thighs, the way people sit when they are trying to take up as little space as possible. Marcus was in the bed. His hands were folded. He looked like a child who had learned very early to be very still. The neurology team had just left after explaining his treatment protocol. Elena had not understood most of it. I sat on the edge of Marcus's bed and switched to Spanish. I explained the diagnosis. I explained the medication schedule. I explained what the next 3 months would look like. Then I turned to Marcus and told him that the doctors were going to help his brain learn to be quieter. He looked at me for a long time. Then he said, "Will it hurt?" I told him some days would be hard. But hard was not the same as permanent. When I stood up to leave that evening, Marcus reached out and took my hand. He did not let go for almost a minute. I came back the next day, and the day after. Over the following 2 years, I logged more than 900 hours with Marcus and Elena read to him during his EEG monitoring sessions. I translated family conferences. I stayed past the end of my shifts on the days when Elena could not get a neighbor to watch his younger brother and needed someone to be there when the residents did rounds. His primary neurologist was Dr. Amara Osebonsu, a Ghanaian-trained pediatric neurologist who had been at MGH for 16 years. She was the kind of physician who wrote everything down and never forgot a detail. Dr. Osebonsu was also the one who, in September of my 3rd year, called me into her office and said, "Sarah, I want to write you a letter for medical school. When you're ready." I told her I was planning to apply the following cycle. She said, "Then I'm writing it now. While I can still remember every hour you've been on this floor." She wrote it in October. In November, Marcus drew a picture. He used a hospital sketch pad and a set of colored pencils Elena had brought from home. The drawing showed 2 people sitting in chairs next to each other. On the back, in the careful block letters of a child who had recently learned to write, he had written 6 words. "For when you become a doctor." He gave it to Elena. Elena gave it to my mother at a foundation fundraiser at MGH in December, where my mother sat on a donor committee. Elena had recognized her from a photograph I had once shown her on my phone. Elena told my mother she had something for me. My mother said she would bring it that evening. She did not bring it. I would not know the drawing existed for 14 months. I submitted my Harvard application in October of my 3rd year. I received the interview invitation in January. The interview was scheduled for a Thursday in February. My mother called me the Sunday before. She said my father was making dinner. She wanted me to come home for the night before the big day. I had not been home in 8 months. I said yes. I drove from my apartment in Somerville on a Wednesday afternoon. I hung my dress, the navy one, the $43 second-hand one, the only professional clothing. I owned that fit correctly, in the closet of my old bedroom. Dinner was the particular cold of a family dinner where everyone is performing a version of themselves that does not quite fit. My mother asked Emma about her MCAT prep. My father poured wine. When I mentioned the interview, my mother said, "We'll see how it goes. Harvard is a very specific place." Emma set her fork down and looked at me across the table for the first time all evening. She said, "You know I'm applying next cycle. You know what it means if you're already there." I did not answer. After dinner, I went to iron my dress. The laundry room opened off the kitchen. I laid the dress on the ironing board. I plugged the iron in. I turned my back for approximately 10 seconds to fill the spray bottle at the sink. When I turned back around, Emma was standing in the doorway. The bleach bottle was in her hand. The cap was already off. She walked to the ironing board and poured. She did not stop until the bottle was nearly empty. I stood there with the spray bottle in my hand. From the living room, "Stop being dramatic, Sarah. It's just a dress." From the kitchen, Your sister is under a lot of pressure. Don't make this about yourself. I turned off the iron. I carried the dress upstairs. I sat on the edge of my old bed for 38 minutes with the ruined dress across my knees. The bleach smell had already settled into the fabric permanently. I knew that. I had worked in a hospital long enough to know what bleach did to things it touched. But I also knew something else. Emma had not done this because she was impulsive. She had done this because she was afraid. And fear, I had learned from 2 years on a pediatric neurology floor, is never about the person standing in front of you. It is always about something behind them. I slept 4 hours. At 5 a.m, I came downstairs in the bleached dress. The house was dark. No one was awake. I did not leave a note. I drove 90 minutes to Boston in silence. The sun came up somewhere on Route 2, orange along the tree line, and for 30 seconds I let myself cry. Then I stopped, and I kept driving. I parked at the Longwood Medical Area at 7:58. I had 3 recommendation letters, a personal statement I had rewritten 4 times, a bleached dress, and no idea that the man interviewing me at 11 had been waiting 18 months to put a face to a name. Stay with me, because what he pulled from the second drawer of his desk changed every single thing. The admissions coordinator checked me in at 8:15. There were 6 applicants that day. Each of us had 3 interview slots. My first was Dr. Caroline Marsh, Director of Student Affairs. My second was Dr. William Okafor, Associate Dean of Admissions. My third was Dr. Patricia Shen, Director of Admissions Operations. The coordinator added, almost as an afterthought, Dr. Okafor specifically requested your 11 o'clock slot. That doesn't happen often. I noted it. I did not understand it yet. Dr. Marsh interviewed me first. She was warm and direct. She asked about my clinical hours. I told her about MGH, about the pediatric neurology floor, about bilingual navigation, about the families. She paused when I mentioned the total hours. That's significantly more than most applicants. She did not mention the bleach stain on my dress. I had decided not to bring it up unless someone asked. At 11, I knocked on Dr. Okafor's door. His office was quiet. Books on 3 walls, a desk with a closed folder and a laptop, a window that faced the medical campus. He shook my hand. He motioned me to sit. He was silent for 4 seconds longer than felt normal. He was looking at my dress. He cleared his throat. Ms. Park, tell me about a patient who changed how you understand medicine. I had prepared 3 different answers for this question. I used none of them. I told him about Marcus. I told him about Elena, about Guatemala, and Roberto and the 2-bedroom apartment in East Boston. I told him about the first day in room 4B, about switching to Spanish, about the 8 months of undiagnosed seizures because the right words had not been available, in the right language at the right time. I told him about Charlotte's Web and the colored pencils and the morning. Marcus told me his brain felt quieter for the first time. I spoke for 7 minutes. He did not interrupt. When I finished, he stood up. He walked to his desk. He opened the second drawer on the left. He reached inside and removed a thin envelope. He set it on the desk. He did not turn it toward me yet. Ms. Park, he said, I need to confirm something. Marcus Reyes. Pediatric neurology at MGH. Mother Elena. Father Roberto deceased. Seizure disorder, diagnosed after 8 months. You worked with this family for 2 years. You are that Sarah. Yes, I said. He sat back down. He looked at the bleach stain on my dress. He looked at the name in the file on his laptop. He looked at me. I have been waiting 18 months to meet you. He turned the envelope around. I recognized Elena's handwriting before I read the first word. The same slope I had seen on every appointment reminder she had ever written for. Marcus's medication schedule. Dr. Okafor read it aloud, slowly, without performance, to the people who decide who becomes a doctor. Please choose Sarah Park. She explained my son's diagnosis in Spanish, when no one else stopped to try. She read to him during his tests when he was scared. She stayed past her shift every time I couldn't get home in time. She is already a doctor in the ways that count. Please, Elena. Reyes, on behalf of Marcus, age 6. He set the letter down. This came to me through Dr. Amara Osibonsu at MGH. She trained under my colleague who now chairs our neurology partnership program. She forwarded it 18 months ago with a single line, for when this applicant arrives. I did not know when you would arrive. I placed it in the drawer and waited. He folded his hands. There is a second matter in your file that I cannot fully discuss in this room, but I can tell you that we received another application in the previous cycle that referenced Marcus Reyes and his family in considerable detail. The overlap with your submitted personal statement was flagged during our review process. When your application arrived this fall, I held very still. I need to understand which version of this story is true, he said. You have one more interview at 1:30. Please take it as scheduled. After today, I will be in contact. He held the door open as I left. I walked into the courtyard and sat on a bench under a bare tree. I had 72 minutes before my next interview. I already knew who had been reading my drafts. I had kept my personal statement on a shared family cloud drive since college. I had saved every important document there for years. Applications, essays, clinical notes. A habit from the time my mother had set up the account when I was 17 and told us all to use it so she could stay organized as a family. I had saved my personal statement draft in March. 14 days later, Emma had submitted her application to Harvard Medical School. With my words in her essay, with a patient she had never met at the center of her narrative. I drove back to Somerville that afternoon. I called Dr. Osebonsu from the car. She confirmed everything. Then I called my mother. She answered cheerful, performing. Sarah, sweetheart. How did it go? I said, Mom, did Emma write about Marcus Reyes in her Harvard essay? The silence was 5 seconds long. My mother did not ask who Marcus was. She did not ask why I was asking. She said, You sound exhausted. Come home and we'll talk. She had known the name. I had never told her. The Harvard Committee on Academic Integrity process began 11 days later. I submitted my evidence in a single folder, my personal statement draft from March, with the cloud drive timestamp printed in the corner showing authorship date. Emma's submitted essay from April of the previous year, provided by the committee. One sentence appeared in both documents word for word. He told me his brain felt quieter. That was the first morning I understood what medicine was actually for. I had written that sentence on a Tuesday afternoon in March. Emma had submitted it 2 weeks later in April as her own. The MGH visitor badge log showed Emma had been on the pediatric neurology floor twice. Total time, 3 hours and 14 minutes. She had never been in Marcus's room. My navigator log showed 947 hours across 26 months. 812 of those hours were specifically with the Reyes family. Dr. Osibonsu submitted a written statement. Ingrid Sandoval, the senior social worker on the floor who had supervised my caseload for 2 years, submitted one as well. There was one more piece of evidence. The drawing. I did not know it existed until Elena called me. She had been at the same MGH Foundation fundraiser in December where she had approached my mother and handed her Marcus's drawing. She had described it to me over the phone. Pencil on sketchpad paper. 2 figures sitting in chairs. 6 words on the back. I called my mother. I asked her to describe the drawing. She said she did not know what I was talking about. I drove to Lexington on a Sunday evening. My mother opened the door with her arms folded. Sarah, we can fix this. Drop the complaint. Emma doesn't deserve to lose everything over one paragraph. I asked if I could use the upstairs bathroom. I walked past her. I walked up the stairs. I walked into my parents' bedroom. I opened the second drawer of my mother's dresser. The same drawer she had told me at age 11 was private. The same drawer she had said I was never to open. Underneath a folded stack of cashmere sweaters was a piece of hospital sketchpad paper. I unfolded it. 2 figures in pencil. 2 chairs, a window in the background. On the back, in the careful block letters of a 6-year-old. For when you become a doctor, I photographed it where it lay. I took the original. I walked downstairs. The whole family was at the dining room table. Emma, my father, My mother standing by the doorway. I placed the drawing face up on the table. This was given to my mother in December by Elena Reyes at an MGH fundraiser. It was drawn by Marcus. It was meant for me. I looked at my mother. She kept it in her dresser drawer. Second from the top, under the cashmere sweaters. Emma looked at the drawing, then at my mother, then back at the drawing. Mom? Emma, don't. Mom, did you give her my... I said don't. My father put both hands flat on the table. He looked at my mother. You told me you forgot about it. She said nothing. You told me you forgot. He stood up and walked out of the dining room. My mother reached for the drawing. I placed my hand over it. She pulled back. Sarah, you don't understand what you're doing to this family. I picked up the drawing. I held it so she could see it. Marcus did. He understood everything. I walked out of the house. I did not look back. The Harvard Committee on Academic Integrity hearing was held 3 weeks later in a conference room I had never been in before. I wore the bleached dress. Elena joined by video at 11:30. She confirmed the origin of the drawing. She confirmed handing it to my mother. She confirmed that Marcus had drawn it himself, in the hospital, during one of his monitoring sessions, and had asked her specifically to make sure I received it when I graduated. She said, in careful English with one Spanish phrase woven through, "My son drew that picture because Sarah was the first person who made him feel like his words mattered. He is 8 years old now. He is in 2nd grade. He has not had a seizure in 14 months. He knows her name. He asks about her. I am here today because he drew a picture for someone and that person did not receive it. I am here so that is corrected." The committee chair thanked her. She disconnected. I placed the original drawing on the table. I made my closing statement without raising my voice. I am not here to end my sister's future. I am here because a 6-year-old drew a picture in a hospital room so that someone would listen. I have been listened to today. The committee will do what the committee does. I only ask that Marcus Reyes be part of the record by name. He was a person. He had a window that faced the parking lot, and he told me once that he liked watching the cars because it meant people were going places. He deserved to be known by his name, not by a sentence in someone else's essay. I sat down. The room was completely quiet. 3 weeks later, I received an email from Harvard Medical School admissions. I read it twice. I texted Elena one line. "We did it," she replied in 30 seconds. Marcus says, "Congratulations, Dr. Sarah." Emma was dismissed from Harvard Medical School the following week for academic misrepresentation in admissions materials. My father called me that afternoon. He spoke for 17 minutes. He told me he was separating from my mother. He had already signed a lease. He told me he was not asking for forgiveness. He was asking for the chance to do the next part differently. I told him I would see him when I was ready. My mother sent me a text that evening. "You destroyed your sister. I hope it was worth it." I screenshotted it. I did not reply. I had not destroyed anything. I had simply stopped holding something up that was already falling. On the first Saturday of May, I drove to East Boston. Elena lived on the 3rd floor of a brick building off Maverick Square. She had moved there 6 months after Marcus's last hospitalization, because the old apartment had too many hard memories in the stairwell. The new place had a kitchen with a yellow table by the window. Marcus was at the table when I arrived. He had grown 3 inches since I had last seen him. He was wearing a soccer jersey and had a spelling worksheet in front of him. He looked up when I walked in. He said, "You got in, right?" I said, "I did." He nodded like this was expected. "I knew you would," he said. Then he went back to his worksheet. Elena had made soup. We ate. We talked about Marcus, about his school, about the teacher he loved, and the one who gave too much homework. We talked about what Elena was thinking of doing. Now that Marcus was stable, she had been looking into a medical administrative certificate program at a community college in Revere. After lunch, she stood up and brought something to the table. A small sewing kit, white embroidery thread, a needle, a small wooden hoop. She said, "The dress." I looked at her. She said, "I want to fix what they took." She turned the bleached dress inside out. She found the inner lining near the left side, near where the heart sits when the dress is on. She fixed the fabric in the hoop. She threaded the needle. We sat in the yellow kitchen light for 35 minutes. Her stitches were slow and exact. Marcus had fallen asleep on the couch in the other room. When she finished, she cut the thread with kitchen scissors. She turned the dress right side out and held it up to the window. The bleach stain was still there. The orange bloom across the navy was permanent. Nothing would change that. But on the inside lining, in white embroidery thread, was a single letter. Miss. She handed the dress to me. Now Marcus is inside it, she said, where no one can take him. She also sewed a small matching M into the corner of her own kitchen apron, so that in different rooms, in different mornings, we would both carry the same letter. I drove back to Somerville that evening through an April sunset that turned the Charles. River the color of the bleach stain. Orange, temporary, impermanent. The dress was folded on the passenger seat. I moved to Boston in August. The dress hangs on a hook by my front door. The drawing sits framed on the shelf above it. Elena framed it herself in a frame from a thrift shop. The bleach stain is still visible from across the room. My mother said it was just a dress. She was wrong about that. She was wrong about most things. The story she built for our family was, in the end, just a story. A story about which daughter deserved what. A story that required one of us to be smaller so the other could seem larger. The story Marcus drew in pencil on a hospital. Sketch pad with colored pencils his mother brought from home. That was the one that turned out to be true. I start medical school in 6 weeks. I will start it in a building my sister had to leave. I will start it with a drawing on my shelf and a letter sewn into the lining of a bleached dress. Both of them belong to me now. Both of them belong to Marcus. Drop a comment. Have you ever had something taken from you that found its way back? Tell me below. Disclaimer. This is a fictional story created for entertainment purposes only. All names, characters, and events are purely imaginary.